So, who were the patriarchs? And the reason I'm doing this is I want to stop before we get into material like how the Gospels start being created, how the Old Testament start being created. We need to understand who the patriarchs are because we started with Christ and we kind of went our way a little bit forward. And now, before we get into the 13th century, we need to look back and see who the patriarchs are. Now, on my a couple of videos ago, I actually did sort of a timeline where I showed how you could actually go back into the patriarchal years and showed that Peleg actually lines up with 536 and just a bunch of other things. I'm also using the Septuagint dates, so they're a bit longer when we get further back. But I'm not so worried about the early patriarchs. We can do a few videos about that. I'm more worried about the patriarchs you get in the last half of Genesis. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, etc. And Job should probably be included in that too. I should point out that in Genesis 46, most people don't know that. Go to Issachar's descendants, you're going to find Job as his grandson. Okay. We're going to deal with Job pretty soon, actually. He's 100% historical. You can find him in history. But, Abraham. So, we're told about a man that traveled from some region. You're going to assume it's down in Iraq. Let's not do that. So he travels from some distant region. He comes to a new land. He spends a little bit of time in a place called Mizraim. We call it Egypt. Not African Egypt. And he returned to that land, and that's supposedly going to be the promised land. Now, I want to point out, have you ever heard that the Indians have a god named Brahma? Do you know that the Mayans also knew of a god something like Brahma? This where it gets interesting. Okay, so Abraham, I'm going to show you a few examples of Abraham, and one of them is the grandfather of Andronicus, Alexios. Have a look. So, here's a few different people that are all the same now. I think I've mentioned before that the 11th century folds into the 12th fairly easily. So, in Bulgaria, they know of Abraham, and he's a Khan. Abraham Eno, he's a so-called Seljuk commander in the Georgian-Iberian frontier. Which, by the way, maps on to some of the Genesis 14 account. And then we have, obviously, who we're talking about, Alexios, the legal covenant and land grant, etc., and Sultan Ibrahim II, who probably, well, he ends up with Ishak Bey later on. And by the way, the Arpachshad, have you ever heard of Arpachshad? That lineage is the Now, Isaac is Isaac Timaeus, the father of Andronicus, we're told. I should point out this is also where the house name Ezekiel comes from, and where Isa itself comes from. So Isaac's pretty easy to place. Now, if you start to line out the travels of Abraham, the travels of Isaac, they start to map out into Anatolia, a lot of these places. And this is kind of what we see here with the Seljuk Philistines, the Philistines. We have Abimelech, the story of Abimelech from Genesis 26. Well, this is what Prince Isaac Camille does, and the accounts of him. Abimelech just means my father, king. It's a nickname. So the biblical dispute over quote-unquote wells, these are the border conflicts between Isaac armed and local Turkish commanders, etc. So you get the covenant Beersheba, a lot of it really maps out into Isaac's travels, which are mainly in Genesis 20. Now, here's where it gets a little spooky. Abraham had two sons first, Ishmael, Manuel. So that's pretty easy. Now, the Quran claims before we get into Jacob and Esau, the Quran claims that Jesus' mother, Mary, is the same as Miriam, meaning that Moses is his uncle. Now, the uncle of Andronicus is John the second Camille, so John the Good. Now, I will point out, it looks like there's two Moseses in the Bible. And this is where we actually, even in Deuteronomy, it says there's going to be two Moseses. And they've been somewhat conflated, or it could be the Moses, like one of the two witnesses. Regardless, the point is, Moses is a competent figure. So one of the figures is the same as John the Baptist, John the second Camille. So that's one connection I would make. Again, we're going to be doing this in detail when we look at the text. But now we come to the Jacob Esau problem. So I want you to just use your mind. What's Jesus' name in Arabic? Isa? Okay. So in Genesis, Esau is not really a bad guy. In fact, you could argue he does pretty good at the end. He has his own place. Him and Jacob are reconciled. Everything looks good. But you might say, wait a minute. Andronicus is killed. Esau's killed. Why isn't Esau killed? Oh, he is. You have to look in the book of Jasher, because well, first of all, in Genesis it said he died, so that's not even an issue. But as far as being killed, the way Andronicus was, the way Christ was, you find that in the book of Jasher. And we'll be getting into that later. And by the way, from one of the sons of Issachar, he does it. Isakios. It's Isakan is what it is. Yeah, you gotta read the name back the way they were originally in Arabic, probably. So Jacob, who found this nation. Okay, Jacob doesn't really found a nation. What he does is he has sons that found a nation. 12 sons. Now, Jacob lines up. Well, let's look at them here, first of all. Okay, so we dealt with Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael. So let's just go down to Jacob. So this is the brother of Andronicus. He's the classic supplanter. He defects to the Turk, marries foreign daughters, and bears the Ottoman seed. And that's important because he's going to go to Armenia, to Leo, we call him Laban, and he's going to marry two of his daughters. And that's exactly what we see here. Now, Jacob is just a nickname. It means it's the supplanter. So there's that. Oh, I'll throw Joseph in. He's just a little bit later. But we're going to eventually talk about him. I have another, yeah. In the biography, we get the structural blueprint, and as I mentioned, it's supplanter, he who followed by the heel. According to later tradition, John and his subject wife had a son, Suleiman Shah, the fourth founder of the Ottoman dynasty. And so there we get it, right. Okay, so Jacob goes to before Andronicus is even killed, he goes to the east, to Armenia, under the rule of Armenia, and marries two of his daughters. Bing bong, bing bong. Is it connecting for you? Now, Ayub, or Job, who we'll be getting to shortly, is also from that region, from that area of Armenia. And there are numerous duplicates of this guy through history, believe me. You find Job of Odessa, Job of Moscow, Job of everything. But regardless, the patriarchs end up here, and Joseph is also going to end up here.